Hey, welcome to another episode, Theological Pipe. My name's Chris. Glad you're here again. Going to talk about a few things today. Very excited. Talked about this yesterday. If you listened to yesterday's podcast, was discussing baseball and talked about who was the greatest baseball player of all time. My vote was Willie Mays. You can feel free to go listen to it. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, comment, like what we're doing. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, we're on all those platforms. Subscribe to us, like us, do that stuff. Again, appreciate people that have commented and messaged me and stuff like that. We're going to keep the conversation going. Again, Theological Pipe is just covering everything: sports, culture, the world, politics, movies, everything from a theological perspective, that there is a God. And so always try to leave you with maybe just something to think about, and then just a charge to be nice to each other. So baseball is back. Today's Thursday. The Yankees and the Nationals started the first game, and I think now the Dodgers and the Giants are playing. They may still be playing right now. It's about 11:45 Central Time right now. Really excited for baseball to be back. Didn't catch all of the game with the Yankees. Did see that Giancarlo Stanton went yard. He blasted one. The Yankees were up 4-1, then they had a rain delay in like the sixth inning. Yankees look good. They're stacked. Was really excited, not excited, but I saw what happened before the game. And when you're on Twitter, you're on social media, you see pictures, and in they showed the Yankees and the Nationals all lined up in the field, first base line, third base line, and they were all kneeling. And they said everyone kneels at the Yankee-Washington, the New York-Washington game, the Yankees-Nationals game. And it's like, all right, kneeling doesn't bother me that much. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think there needs to be deeper conversations as to why people are kneeling. If you go back to the reason Kaepernick, when he started it, again, kneel all you want. That's what makes America great, is that you can protest and you can do those kind of things. But I think conversations need to be had about, well, what do the statistics bear out? What are the real issues that we're talking about? And there are issues in this country we need to talk about. But police brutality, let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers of blacks murdered. Let's look at the numbers of whites murdered. Let's look at police procedures. Let's do all those things. But as always is the case, the message gets mixed up, and Kaepernick will say, hey, it's not about the flag, and then 2 days later he'll say it most definitely is about the flag. He'll say it's not about America, it's about police brutality, and then he'll say 4th of July is a horrible holiday, and I'm not going to celebrate America because it's about America. We're a racist country. That's a discussion again we can have ad nauseum forever. But the cool thing about the Yankees and the Nationals game, they all kneeled together before the national anthem, and then when the national anthem started, every one of them stood up and they saluted the flag. They stood up for the national anthem, and I just, all things considered, I think that's a pretty good compromise. I think it sends a good message that, hey, we're all unified to try to fix some things that need to be fixed, but we're not gonna demean or diminish the sacrifice of the people who fought for the country and who the flag means so much and the anthem means so much. So I really thought that was a great. I don't even know if it's a compromise. I don't even know if they thought about it, but I thought they handled it well. And it was just good to see baseball back. And again, I'm not one of those guys that's going to not watch or not go to a movie or not go to a restaurant or not go to a place because of someone's political beliefs, because they disagree with me on something. Now, if it's something huge, if they're like baby murderers, yeah, I'm probably not going to, go eat pizza at the baby murder place. But other than that, political beliefs are political beliefs. You should be able to hang out and do things with people that don't agree with you politically. So I thought that was a really good way to start the season. And I hope other leagues look into that. I hope other people look into that. And then I hope the conversations that we have are based on facts and based on listening to each other. A lot of times people say, I need you to listen, let's have a conversation, but it's really, we'll have a conversation, but it's going to be one way, me telling you what I think, and then I don't want to listen to you. And I think we need to not have that. We need to have a conversation. So all in all, baseball's back. Yankees, Nationals kicked it off. I'm excited tomorrow for the Mets to get going against the Braves, to see the best pitcher in baseball, Jacob deGrom, pitch. But again, thought it was a pretty good start for baseball. I did see something else sports-wise before we get into something a little bit deeper and theological for you to think about. The Seattle NHL team, they just announced they're starting a franchise, and they're going to be an expansion team, and they're going to start playing, I think, next year. And they announced their team name, and it's the Seattle Kraken. And I just the logo's awesome, the team name is awesome, and if they do not play the clip from the original Clash of the Titans, and I think it was Laurence Olivier played Zeus saying, "Release the Kraken." If they don't play that, man, they're missing a golden opportunity. But Seattle Kraken, I think I just want to like that team just because of the name. I think that's just awesome. So, man, sports is back. Again, baseball is back. Again, props to the Yankees and the Nationals for handling a delicate situation the way they did. At least in my opinion, I thought it was decent. Glad that baseball, tomorrow more teams are going to start playing. Glad that the NBA and the NHL are going to start here in about a week. So we're going to have 3 sports going and be able to kind of watch live professional major sports. And again, I said before, I'm so happy that the UFC is continuing to do fights like they've been doing for the past month or two. But I wanted to kind of switch gears and talk about the riots that are still going on in some of the cities. Now, they've calmed down for the most part, but in Portland and Seattle, they're still going on, and in other places in Chicago, there's still a lot of murders. And I see those things going on, and the part that I see that gets me upset or that angers me or makes me think is the inaction of either incompetent or scared mayors and governors who are afraid to confront the issues because of politics. Let's just use Portland. That's been going on for almost 2 months. There are people that have blocked off city blocks. They burn things. They assault people. They just they're trying to break into buildings, and they're doing all this while the mayors and governors are criticizing Donald Trump for something. And Trump is not above criticism, but when it's been going on for 2 months in Portland, and when Seattle's having unrest, and the mayors and the governors are telling the police to stand down. There was a protest in Denver, and Black Lives Matter people and Antifa people rushed the stage, and I think it was Michelle Malkin, who I don't care if you like her or not, but she was just giving a speech, and they attacked her. And the Denver police were told to stand down. And it blows my mind that you see inactive, incompetent, scared mayors, governors, people who are willing to say, we've got to stop this. In Portland, preachers have go there and they're attacked. Guys carrying American flags are attacked. Buildings are being graffitied and defaced like nobody's business. They're tearing down statues. They're burning buildings. They're burning businesses. They're attacking people. People have been raped there. There have been murders in the Portland chop zone, whatever they call it. And this is going on in other locations. You see all this, and when I see that, and then I don't see any action, I don't see any reaction from people in charge, from the police, from ordinary citizens coming in and saying, that's enough, this needs to stop. And I see the inaction. It's just maddening to me. It's like, what are we just going to sit around and let this happen? And it drives me nuts to watch that and not see the reaction. And then when I do see the reaction, it's Trump's fault. Well, it's the federal government's fault. Well, it's mostly peaceful. Okay, there was a great meme where there was a reporter reporting saying, hey, these are mostly peaceful protests. And as he's saying that, behind him, a building is on fire. Right? I mean, it's unreal to just watch this and to see the reaction and the way it's covered, and then to watch videos of what's going on. And it's maddening to me to see that. And it's maddening for me to see people destroy things and beat people up and do those things, all because they're quote unquote protesting. And I think the second you move from a protest, the second you break the law, you're not a protester anymore. You're a rioter. And I also get upset, not upset, but I also hear some people on the news, some people on Twitter, some people on different social media platforms having conversations, and they make excuses for what's going on, for the rioters, not just the protest. It's American to protest. You got a problem, go yell about it. Go march about it. Go make your voice heard, and then go vote and go become active in coming up with a solution. Just yelling about things and tearing things down is not a solution. And I hear people making excuses for Antifa and the Black Lives Matter people who cease to be protesters the second they break the law. And they'll make it the excuse, something along the lines of this, that, hey, people, they're so helpless and they're so passionate and they have no other course of action, that, they've been yelling for so long and their voice isn't being heard. So, when they, if they break the law, or if they destroy a building, or if they destroy a business, that's collateral damage, and that's all part of getting their voice heard. You didn't hear me before, but boy, you're going to hear me now, because buildings are burning and businesses are burning. And when they do that, they always leave out the assaults, and they always leave out the murders, and they always leave out the rapes, because those things are happening too at these riots, at these quote unquote protests. And I don't even know where to start with that. And I heard a couple people say, listen, when people make stupid arguments, just don't even engage. And I don't think I'm engaging with that argument. I get it. I understand that mentality. But the problem I have with that is, would those same people who are apologizing, those same people who are apologists for rioters, and maybe even call them terrorists if you want to, because they're terrorizing their neighborhoods, their people, would those same people who make apologies for rioters and terrorists, would they be so willing to appease the rioters, to overlook what's going on, to sugarcoat what's happening, if tomorrow a group of pro-life activists started burning buildings and torching cars that were in the Planned Parenthood parking lot? I mean, hey, they're just tired of talking all the time and having people not listening to what they're saying about, their beliefs. And if no one's going to listen, we're going to burn things and we're going to destroy things. And that's part of protest, right? Of course not. The second that happened, the people who were against, the people who are apologizing for the riots and the protesters right now would do a 180 and say, oh, that's horrible, those people need to go to jail. And then there would be some people who are protesting and saying, or who are against the rioters and protesters now, would say, well, they are standing up for babies. It's the lack of consistency is maddening, and consistency is important. Here's what needs to be said, or here's what should be said. Rioting and looting and arson and assault and rape and murder in the name of any political issue, whether it be anti-capitalism, racism, being pro-life, being pro-gun, being being socialist, being capital, whatever the issue is, if you riot, if you loot, if you commit arson, if you commit assault, if you rape and murder, if you do it in anything, now listen to what I'm going to say here. It's wrong. It's wrong. That blows my mind that there are not adults, that there are not leaders in cities and in states and in this country that can stand up and say, no, no more. It's wrong what you're doing. Yes, you have some grievances. I get it. The second that you move from telling someone about it and yelling about it and voting about it to burning someone's business down, it's wrong. Wrong, period. There's right, there's wrong, and that's wrong. And we need adults, we need leaders, not only to step up and say it's wrong, but then to do something about it, right? Amen. Everyone says, okay, yeah. And I hope people at least are understand where I'm coming from. You may disagree, and that's fine. But that being said, because this is Theological Pipe, and I always want you to think about something, Even though I think that's right, even though I think that rioting and looting and murder and rape and destruction of people's property and destruction of people's businesses, I still, when I watch videos of the riots when they first started happening and you saw people's businesses burning down and they're sitting there yelling at the people saying, "You're burning down my business. I spent my whole life building this and you just destroyed it. I'm not the one that you should be fighting against." And it breaks my heart. And it also warms my heart to see people do GoFundMes and raise money for these people. That being said, what should my reaction as a believer in God, and again, as a Christian, and I think on a theological stance, what should my reaction be towards, and I'm going to say it, to those fools? To the fools that are burning, to the fools that are looting, to the fools that are throwing bottles and bricks and stuff at cops, to the fools that are just being fools. What should my reaction be? Should I be angry? Looks like I am, right? I'm getting worked up. Should I want revenge and justice? But yeah, of course. I want them in jail. I want them to not do what they're doing. Am I disgusted by what they're doing? Yeah, of course I am. But words that probably don't come into my vocabulary but should, as a believer, what about forgiveness? Whoops. What about grace? There was some tobacco in there. It came out of my pipe. But what about grace? What about forgiveness? That hurts, doesn't it? As a believer, as a Christian, what should my reaction be to people who are breaking the law, for people who are doing really bad things, to people who are doing just bad things? Forgiveness and grace. I could, and I'm not going to, you can go to the Bible, you can go to Google if you want and type in forgiveness versus grace versus mercy versus, and you'll read a whole bunch of them. I'm going to leave you with a quote, though, from C.S. Lewis. And this is what he says. He says, to be a Christian, and I'll say to be someone who believes in a higher power, but I'm going to use Christian here. To be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. Ouch, right? I mean, that's not, if that's not convicting, I just ranted for a few minutes about these people doing these horrible, stupid things that I don't agree with, things that I think that are wrong, and I know that they're wrong because you shouldn't be doing them. And I want adults to step up and say no, but as for me, what should I think about those people? Forgiveness. I should forgive them. And why should I forgive them? Because God has forgiven the inexcusable in me. And someone may say, yeah, but hang on a second. You don't burn down buildings, right? You don't beat up people. I mean, at least not today I don't. Do I? And the answer is no, of course not. But again, if you read the Bible, if you read what Jesus said about things, Jesus, when he was talking one time, he said, you've heard it said, don't commit murder. But Jesus says, but I say, you can't hate somebody because if you hate them, it's like you've committed murder already in your heart and I'm going to judge you that way. So you're a murderer. So if you hate somebody, if you get angry with somebody and hate them, you're a murderer. Jesus said, hey, you've heard it said, don't commit adultery. I'm going to say, Jesus says, I say, if you look at somebody with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart with them, and it's just like you've committed the act. And I can go on. Jesus doesn't make things, he ups the ante. He says, listen, you've heard it said don't murder, and I'm like, okay, cool, I've not murdered anybody. But then he says, but if you hate somebody, you're a murderer. Well, I'm a murderer. I am, according to the Bible, according to what God says in his word. And Jesus said, listen, don't commit adultery. And thank God I haven't committed adultery. Ooh, but then Jesus goes, if you lust after somebody, you've committed adultery. So just in those two instances, I'm a murdering adulteress or an adulterous murderer, however you want to say it. And Jesus, he upped the ante and he says, listen, this is who you are, and I still forgive you. I'm going to forgive the inexcusable in you because I love you and because that's what I do. And then Jesus says that's what you're supposed to do to other people. And the C.S. Lewis quote drives it home. It says, to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable, to forgive the rioter, to forgive the arsonist, to forgive the murderer, to forgive the guy that burns down businesses, to forgive the guy who has beliefs that are totally different than you and may be based on faulty facts and faulty logic and may be wrong. God says, and C.S. Lewis backs up in his quote, says, forgive them because God has forgiven you. And that right there, to me, is saying, I have to forgive those people that are doing that because God's forgiven me. And I'm going to tell you that even as I say that, that's a struggle. And that definitely is put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. I'm sitting here covered in tobacco because I had some tobacco in here. And when I popped it like this, it went everywhere. So if you're watching on YouTube, maybe you saw it fly all over the place. If not, you're just listening to me talk about tobacco on my shirt and in my shorts and stuff like that. But put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. I do think that we do have some problems with this, with the rioting and the looting and the stuff going on in these cities. And again, as Christians, I want to offer forgiveness for these people. I don't want to, but I want to. And that's one of my favorite verses in the Bible is when the guy, Jesus was talking to the guy that wanted his son healed, and he said, I believe, help my unbelief. And when I first heard that, I was like, that's dumb. He believes, but he doesn't. But as I've grown as a Christian, I understand that completely. I believe, but man, I need help with my belief. I'm supposed to forgive, but man, I don't want to forgive. And so I know that I'm supposed to forgive and I'm supposed to offer grace and mercy because that's what a believer in God does. And so when you see those things happen, and understand that theologically speaking, biblically speaking, I'm just as inexcusably bad as those people, and Jesus has forgiven me. So I'm going to pray for those people that are doing it. I'm going to pray for them and pray that they stop doing that and pray that they start doing things in a more constructive manner. I'm going to pray for the leaders of those cities and those states and for the president and for all the people involved, and not just that, but the pandemic and everything that's going on. I'm going to pray for them to do the right thing because, it is maddening to watch. It is frustrating to watch. And it makes it even more frustrating that as a believer in God, as a Christian, I have to watch it and then forgive those people? I don't want to do that. But I have to, because I have to put it in my theological pipe and smoke it. And I think that's a good thing to think about, is just when you watch people do things that just frustrate you and that are just against the law and that are just maddening, love them. Forgive them. The Bible says to pray for your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those you disagree with. And man, if we could start doing that kind of stuff, how much different will things be? And again, I always want to leave, with the saying, just be nice. Be nice to people. Be nice. And I think I'll just stop there. So, hey, so glad that sports is back. So glad that the Mets are playing tomorrow. So glad that the NBA and the NHL are starting soon. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. Have a good story. I hope I'll get to it sooner or later. You could look it up if you want to before we talk about it. There's a great story about a woman who won the lottery. And she didn't win a lot of money, but she was a single mom. She won the lottery, and her daughter gave the money to a police officer. And we'll talk about that probably tomorrow if I remember. If not, we'll do it in a couple days. But man, be praying for people, be praying for this world, be praying for this country, be praying for our leaders, be praying for the people that you agree with, and be praying for the people that you disagree with, because that's something that needs to be put in a theological pipe. So put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. Be nice, and we'll see you next time.